everybody. I hope you guys are doing great today. For those of you guys who don't know, my name is Jared with Heat Press Nation. I do a lot of the MyExpert live training webinars here at Heat Press Nation. And as you can see, I am upstairs. Well, you don't know that I'm upstairs. I'm here at our offices in Fullerton, California. Just before you ask, I know we're still closed at the moment. Close to the public, I should say, but I'm here to do our live webinar today. So yay! I actually put pants on, well, shorts, but I put clothes on today, which is a great break from the work at home. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing great. We're gonna get started right now. Today's topic is, we're going back to the basics. We're talking about layering HTV. Now, this is really a really important skill to learn. This is Silhouette Studio. Again, I'm using Silhouette Studio because it's just easy to get started. And then we're all gonna, if you're on Illustrator, trust me, you have more than enough firepower there to complete all of these and more, all these actions and tasks that I'm going to show you guys today. So today we're starting off with this pretty basic popsicle. It's cool. It'll probably look neat on a t-shirt, but sometimes, it's just not enough to have a single color graphic on your garment. You want to add like a couple different things. I don't know, you want to just change it up. It's cool, but is it cool enough? I don't know. We might want to add some stuff to it. So there's two types of layering that we're going to be going over today. The first one is direct layering. And you see I added some text, right? We're going to show you how to do that. Direct layering is when one layer goes directly on top of another. That's direct. And put it back where it's supposed to be. That's direct layering. The other one you might have heard us talk about is knockout layering, or you could also call it indirect layering. You see, we have 4 layers here. We have the red layer, the white layer, the blue layer, and this brown layer. And none of them are touching each other. That's called either knockout, or you could also say indirect layering. I've heard some people call it side-by-side layering. But for the sake of today, we're going to call it knockout layering because we did knock out. We're going to show you guys all of this. So we're going to start with our popsicle. If I wanted to do a layer, right? Actually, I'm gonna show you guys a cool trick. If you ever have a single color graphic like this, today we're gonna be making a lot of use of our modify tab, modify tools right here. Now, if you're working in Illustrator or CorelDRAW, this is probably gonna come up as something else, but trust me, you do have these functions in your programs. So one thing that I'm going to do, so I just have one color. How am I going to fill in? How am I going to create a vinyl layer on the inside? Let's say I wanted to fill in this popsicle. How would I do that? What you're going to do is you're going to release the compound path. And you see right there, it says, if the selected shape contains a hole, the hole is detached and converted to a shape in its own right. That's a huge tool right there. So I'm going to click release. And now here's one thing that happens in Silhouette Studio. I haven't seen this happen in other programs. I click release, and now everything's still together. It grouped everything. You're going to want to ungroup. You could right click it and hit ungroup. And actually, I'm going to do that a couple times. Oh no, it's already on. You could right click it and hit ungroup. You could also hit Control Shift G. I believe, no, not in Silhouette. That's a different program. Just right click it to hit ungroup. All right, now everything's the same color, by the way. So what I'm going to do is, what usually helps me find my different thing, I'm just going to color it something, right? There we go. So now I have my insides, right? And so what I usually do is I'll start coloring things, and that's going to help me fill it in, right? So this is our background, right? So this is the outline of the shape that we just messed around with, right? It's the outline of the shape. But now the gaps, now these are getting filled in, which is really cool. And then this is going to be brown. There we go. Now these black spots on there, you don't have to delete them. You don't have to do this next step, but you can if you want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the subtract. Now, what's cool about Silhouette Studio is it'll tell you exactly what's about to happen before it does. So if you hover your mouse over subtract, it says, use the frontmost shapes to cut a hole in the backmost shape. The backmost shape can be either a single shape or a group. So what you're doing, other programs might call it punch. I think subtract is probably the most common one. So you see how the little black dots and little details, those are on top of the main background of this red layer. When we hit subtract, it's just going to punch it out. Now, what happened here, what I didn't want to happen, is I think I had too much going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these, and let's zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, again, you don't have to do this because if I were to just group these together, which is probably the easier thing to do, if I just group it together, these shapes are still going to cut out. So just don't forget to weed them. And in fact, for ease of use today, I mean, you could punch them out if you want to. See, you don't want to do too many shapes at a time. I'll usually go in little increments. And what you could do if you want to select multiple things at a time, just hold the shift key and select them. See, and then these ones, you're just going to select them, right? So there's two ways to do it. If you want to go to the trouble and subtract them, you can, or you could just group it all together like I did up here. Same thing. I'm going to subtract these ones. There we go. And so now when we direct layer, here's one more important thing. I'm glad that happened. You're saying, wait, it's covering the bottom. Well, when we're layering, when you're doing direct layering, one thing you always have to consider is what layer is going to go first. Whatever layer is on the bottom is going to go first on your t-shirt. So I have this layer here, and you see what I did. These are called your order tools. Order is very important when you're working with this. So you see, I sent this right here. You hover over this to send to back. I sent this, the large outline layer to the back. So you see here, that looks pretty cool, right? It looks a lot better, in my opinion, than just having a simple just outline. Now we have a 4-color graphic that looks pretty darn cool. But now what if I brought this to the front? Well, now it's going to cover everything. And also what you could do is you could just, if you want to send it back just one layer, right? You could send it back another layer, right? Or you could send it all the way to the back. So here's one thing that's important to remember. Whatever layer is on the bottom, that's going to go first in your transfer. So when we actually put this on the t-shirt, you're going to press here, and I'll give you guys kind of a more visual example. So here we have a mock-up of a white t-shirt. Now what would happen if I pressed my red layer first, and then I decided, you know what, let's group that. I want to press my blue layer, okay. And then I'm going to press my brown layer, okay, that actually doesn't look so bad. And then I'm going to press my black layer. No, you can't do that because this is already on the t-shirt. So the black layer, it would actually end up looking like this. You'd just be covering up everything that you just did. So that's just something I wanted to mention, that layering is important. And all this to the front. So when you're layering, you're going to lay your base layer first. And this is, again, this is direct layering, where one layer is going to go directly on top of each other. So I have my black layer down first, and then you could press, if you're really careful, you could probably press these at the same time. You'd press your red. You'd be careful to line up your blue. Oh, and that's another thing you want to be careful for. And then boom. And that's how you do it. Now you have this really cool multicolor graphic on your t-shirt. And again, this is direct layering. And you say, oh, how'd you get that cool font? I'll go over how to do the font. I mean, I just wanted to make it cute. What about the shrinkage on the vinyl? Or sorry, what about the shrinkage, the vinyl shrinkage? That's a real thing, you guys. When you're heat pressing your vinyl, what you don't want to do is wait too long between layers. You also want to pre-press your t-shirt for at least 10 seconds. Usually for other stuff, if you're just doing one layer, 5 seconds is good enough. When I'm layering my heat transfer vinyl, especially direct layering, or layers where they have close tolerances, and I'll be talking about that in a moment, you don't want to give it too long, because when you heat something up, you know, it kind of expands. when it cools down, it contracts. So when you're heat pressing this, you don't want to give your base layer too much time to cool down, because then it's going to shrink a little bit. So what I do is I have all of my transfers ready to go. So for instance, if you had to do a bunch of these shirts, you can't process it like a screen print, because if it was a screen print, you do all the black first, then you'd come back and hit all your reds, then you'd come back and hit all your blues, and then all of your browns, right? You can't do that with heat transfer vinyl, because the vinyl is going to shrink a little bit. Once it cools down, it's going to make it very hard to line up. So every shirt, you have to hit all your layers as quickly as possible. You're going to hit your black layer. And by the way, when layering heat transfer vinyl, your first layers are only going to be pressed for about 3 seconds. If your heat press is at the proper temperature, you only need to press it for about 3 seconds. That's what I do. So heat press it 3 seconds, just long enough to get it to stick. And then as fast as possible, you want to bring in your next layer, about 3 seconds. And then your next layer for about 3 seconds. And then you could do two things. On your last layer, you can either press the last layer for the full 10 to 15 seconds, or what I do is I'll do my last layer 3 seconds. Then I'll put a piece of parchment paper over all of it and do the whole thing for 10. Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about knockout layering. And you see what I did here is this is just a big gray square that I tossed in there because I wanted to preview how this graphic would look on a dark t-shirt. And sometimes that's just what you got to do. You know, you want to make sure it's going to look cool before you press it, especially if you're concepting designs. Maybe you're making your own graphics and you don't know if it's going to work, if it's going to look cool. This has, being able, just putting the base layer, it really helps me choose colors. It saves time. Like, maybe I don't want that color. Maybe I do want this color. Maybe I need yellow there. So just putting that down is just a little tip for when you're designing. So we're going to go over to knockout layering. Now, again, knockout layering, some people call it side-by-side layering. Some people call it indirect layering. Knockout is actually referred to when this is knocked out of the background, okay? The reason I like this style of layering is because nothing's touching. So you don't have to worry about overlapping. You can see here, there's a gap right here, right? So it does make it easier to line up graphics. Now this graphic, I'll tell you, is pressed in a different order, but we'll get to that in a second. So I'm gonna get these pieces right here, and we're gonna start a new project. So now, as you can see here, it might not look that cool on a white t-shirt. That's why I set it up on a black. I think it looks best on a black t-shirt. But personal preferences vary. So here's what we're gonna do. So this is just one piece. This is two pieces, and of course this makes three. And so what I'm gonna do is I want some text to go in here, but I want it to run right through the middle of my graphic. Now there's two things you can do. And I'm just gonna type up my text really quick here. I do want it to be in a cool font and wisdom script. One thing you don't want to do, you don't want to forget to weld your font and then make it a compound path. And then of course I'm going to color it in. Here's what you could do. When you're heat pressing this, you could just layer the text directly on top of the vinyl. So you're pressing your t-shirt, you're going to press your red layer first, then you're going to carefully line up your blue layer. You're going to press that, and then you're going to hope you can find the center of this popsicle. You're going to press your brown popsicle stick. And then if you were lazy, no, not lazy, if you're pressed for time, we'll say that, you could just slap the stay cool right on top of it, right? Here's the problem. It gets a little hard to read, especially over this multicolor design. Now, if this popsicle was all orange, it might be a little easier to read the stay cool. Maybe if the popsicle was a bright, or if both sides of my popsicle were a bright yellow, it's definitely easier to read the stay cool, but now I'm kind of losing it. So anyways, I want this popsicle to be red and blue. And so let's pretend it's going on a white shirt now. How do I get this text to pop? We're gonna do what's called the knockout method. And so to do that, you're going to go back to your outline tool, or I'm sorry, your offset tool, offset, and I'm going to zoom in so we can see exactly. Oh, okay, hold on. When you're doing the offset, like you have to finish the job, otherwise it'll render your offset. Okay, so we're going to do offset, and I don't need my offset to be super huge. I do want it a little bit bigger than the last thing we did, and I want my corners to be sharp. So I just want to give myself a little space here. That should do. I'm going to click apply, and then I have my modified tab open, and I'm going to click make. And then I'm going to move my original text out of the way, and now you see my offset. To get a better idea of how this offset's going to look, I fill it in with color. I'm going to have to knock this text out of the red and the blue layer. I don't know if I haven't tried this yet. Let me see if I can get it done in one pass. Nope. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to select both of these texts and this neat little button right here. Align them perfectly. So one is directly on top of each other. And just for the sake, I'm going to group it. Sorry. Let's group all these. Make sure everything is centered. Let's group these. And now I'm going to center everything. You want to make sure everything is centered perfectly. All right, guys? Now, before we get this done, I have to ungroup these white layers, right? See how there's two? Select one, hold the shift key and click on the red layer, and I'm going to subtract. Select the other one, click on the blue layer and subtract, and now I've punched it out of both. And when you do that, also, it's going to separate everything. So all these little red layers, even that little tiny one, you're going to want to group them back together, or you could just hit make. All these little fragments are separated, so you just want to bring them back together. So now it's all, see, it's just one piece. Okay, and so now when I bring in this layer, check that out. Boom. That looks cool. All right, so now let me bring in a black t-shirt so we can see how this is going to look. And feel free to do this. I mean, I know they have Photoshop mockups that look a lot better, but sometimes you just need to see how something's going to look. You don't really care if your mockup looks fancy or not. You want to see how it's going to look. I'm going to turn this stay cool back to white. People are going to notice the text the most. So for different designs, it's going to be something different. Sometimes you know, depending on how many different shapes you have on the knockout method, you might want it that'll cause you to layer one layer before the other. In this case, I think the text is probably going to be the part that needs to be centered the most. And so let's just say I put my white layer down, I centered my stay cool on my t-shirt, and now because I did the knockout method, as long as the knockout is just evenly spaced for everything, boom, heat press that there. Bring this over. Oh no, where does it go? You got to kind of find it, but then once you do, like, okay, that looks good. And then this little rogue piece is always weird. There we go. And so now, there we go. That's the knockout method, where none of these layers are touching each other. Now, if you're concerned about how heavy the vinyl is going to feel on your chest, definitely look into the knockout method, because you're not stacking any vinyl, so it's not getting any extra thickness. All the vinyl is staying separately, and because it's broken up, the shirt's actually going to breathe a lot easier than if it wasn't. So yeah, so there we go. That's the knockout method. And just for fun, let's see how it would look if we layered. Maybe you're concerned with how far it is from the neck. So you're saying, okay, I know for sure that I want this design to be close to the neck, right? So then you would center it first. Of course, I'm eyeballing here, but let's just say heat pressed it as close to the neck as possible, boom. Well, then you would just kind of go logically with the next step down. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to layer these and guess. You know, let's just say I guessed right there, right? Did I do a good guess? Nope. See, so if I layered my red then blue, doing things out of order just ruined this transfer. So that's why you're gonna go red, and then you're gonna like, it's kind of like a puzzle. You're gonna just get the next piece, line it up, and then the next piece. Because what if I try to do my bronze? Now I'm guessing as to where this is gonna go, right? Nope. You definitely want to stick with the order. Figure it out, line it up. There we go, that looks good. And then this one, definitely would use a T-square to make sure that's centered. You don't want to make a popsicle where it's all off-center. It looks dumb. And there we go. And this is the knockout, the indirect or the side-by-side layering method. You know, this is the direct method, and then this is the knockout method. And honestly, once you've mastered these two and you've learned how to get your artwork to work for you, separate the colors, you know, you could do lots of cool different colors. You know, this design kind of works as a one color design. You have to kind of stare at it for a little bit to figure out what's going on. Even if it was a two color design, or what color are popsicles or blue? There we go. Even as a two color design, it looks a little bit better. But making this that's a really bright red. Maybe I want to use that one. Having this as a 4-color design, that's a lot cooler. Where's my original? There. Oh no. I lost it. There it is. Having this as a 4-color design, that's what's cool. Like this is leaps and bounds cooler than, and I'll just show them side by side. Nothing wrong. Sometimes you're on a budget and you can only do a 1-color design. But if you can, multiple colors, charge your customers more, make more money, and put out better products that you guys can be proud of. And I thank you for joining me for another live training webinar. I love being able to talk about the basics because I know a lot of you guys are getting started up. We've had so many first-time heat press and vinyl cutter buyers. We're so glad that you've decided to join us here at Heat Press Nation. I know it's been kind of hectic on the phones. We're doing our very best to serve you as best as we can. And so I'm excited to see what you guys are creating. Don't forget, use the hashtag HPN Creators. When you post on Instagram or on Facebook or Twitter, use the hashtag HPN Creators. And then, of course, we have our Facebook group. For those of you guys who don't know, heat.press/FB group. It's going to take you right to our Facebook group. Please join. It's really great. And I'm really looking forward to see what you guys are creating. heatpressnation.com. For any questions, give us a call, 800-215-0894. And that's going to do it for me today, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another live training webinar, MyExpert live training webinar. And I hope you have a great, fantastic, and safe weekend, you guys. All right, we'll see you.